Thank you. Our World is One World, written by Cecily Taylor, who was born in 1930. And if you imagine the turmoil in her life that led her to write a message of peace, the last verse reads, "Our world is one world, just like a ship that bears us all, where fear and greed make many holes, but where our hearts can hear a different call." And that's a wonderful message for this morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Columbus. And a very special welcome to Don Wilson, Ed's beloved nephew, who drove all the way from Michigan to be here with us this morning. Michigan near Indiana, so we're so pleased that you could be here and share this moment with us. We here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Columbus are an inclusive spiritual community of people who support each other in their personal searches for truth and meaning. I'm Connie Ussery, your volunteer service leader, and we're here today to acknowledge Ed and Sidney Wilson's donation of a beautiful custom-made, handcrafted pulpit and to dedicate it to service in our fellowship. There's much, much more about that later. But first, we start our services by lighting the chalice, which symbolizes reason, tolerance, and freedom, and also justice, compassion, and love. Years ago, when we were meeting in the house on Double Churches Road, Ed Wilson directed a Wednesday night discussion about the purpose of a genuine, traditional pulpit and the substance it brings to a speaker's message. I remember in particular how he stressed the idea that the pulpit draws attention and focus to the message. And here in this beautiful array of art and design, what better gift to our fellowship than something that does that for us in this space? Ed and Sidney share a vision of a pulpit that elevates a room into a place of worship. After we moved from Double Churches, which seemed spacious back then, if you recall, we wanted a sanctuary for ourselves, both inside and outside. And we've truly found that here. Ed and Sidney realized that this new space needed a pulpit as that focal point that would meld serenity and peace our leaders sought to achieve, and it suddenly became more important than ever to all of us. So about 3 years ago, when the Wilsons called the design team together to talk about their ideas, the team took to the task with determination. We held meetings, we met with artisans, we looked at materials, samples, we talked about design, and things seemed to get in our way for a while, but suddenly, the need was revived. Things seemed to, and the design team found the Amish Woodworking Company website up in Plymouth, Indiana. The owner of the company answered the phone. There were saws buzzing in the background. He was authentic. His samples were good. His price was reasonable. And coincidentally, Plymouth, Indiana is one of the towns where Ed Wilson sold religious books to make ends meet for a while as a young man. And he got to know life among the Amish people and the people of Indiana, of Plymouth, Indiana. Back then, he came to respect their craftsmanship and learn a lot about religion and life along the way. So from Ed's youth to today, a span of a few decades, I suppose, we have come full circle, as they say. And the inspiration that a young Ed Wilson felt among people skilled in their art and firm in their beliefs was never lost. When we talked about this Amish community and their custom work, Ed's eyes lit up with stories of his own experiences among them. So the Wilsons' enthusiasm about funding the perfect pulpit for our fellowship gradually became a reality, and it was a slow process, but it's well worth it. We are all here today to participate as a congregation in this exercise to recognize this generous donation from Ed and Sidney. We cannot hold a dedication ceremony without the 7 principles that sum up the core values that Unitarian Universalists espouse. Please read each slide silently as I read them aloud. the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregation and in society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part.
Thank you for letting me share a reading with you today. And on such a special occasion, I was flattered to be asked. I would like to share an excerpt from The Art of Loving by Erich Fromm. What does one person give to another? He gives of himself, of the most precious he has. He gives of his life. This does not necessarily mean that he sacrifices his life for the other, but that he gives him of that which is alive in him. He gives him of his joy, of his interest, of his understanding, of his knowledge, of his humor, of his sadness, of all expressions and manifestations of that which is alive in him. In thus giving of his life, he enriches the other person. He enhances the other's sense of aliveness by enhancing his own sense of aliveness. He does not give in order to receive. Giving is in itself exquisite joy. But in giving, he cannot help bringing something to life in the other person. And this which is brought to life reflects back to him. Thank you, Ed, for bringing something to life in all of us and in this fellowship with this beautiful pulpit. I hope you have a great rest of your day and the rest of your weekend.
It's always wonderful to have Danielle Neal speak to us from all the way in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. Today's offering, we are grateful for the volunteers who serve us every week to make this service possible. We support this community as contributors in our own way. And now we offer everyone a chance to support the maintenance of the facility and grounds we enjoy. You can mail offerings to UUFC at P.O. Box 698, Fortson, Georgia, or use PayPal. Click the Send Money tab and put as recipients our email address, uufc@gmail.com. So as you join us in supporting our fellowship, Amanda Reese, John Land, and Whittaker Locke will sing a special song for us this morning. They've been preparing just for this day, Dona Nobis Pacem.
Dona nobis pacem, pacem. Dona nobis 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 pacem, pacem. Dona nobis pacem.
Dona nobis pacem, pacem. Dona nobis pacem.
Dona nobis pacem, pacem. Dona pacem, dona nobis 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 pacem.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Joyce.
It is my honor to introduce two of my favorite people, Sidney and Ed Wilson. Sidney was born in Oklahoma, but spent her childhood in Atlanta. She's been an artist most of her life, and she taught art at Hardaway and served as a professor of art at Troy University. She also served as an assistant principal at Carver Elementary, as well as being a principal of an elementary school in Hogansville, Georgia. Her education included earning a Master of Visual Arts from Georgia State University, as well as a doctorate in administration and leadership from the University of Alabama. Her art has been displayed at the Art Guild and the Joseph House Gallery. She has served as the director of the Fine Arts Career Education for the state of Georgia. And after retirement, she also taught art at Key Elementary and painted a mural there. On a personal note, Sidney and Ed found each other right here in Columbus. Both were single, having gone through a divorce, and they married here in 1975. They both joined UU in 1976, and they have been members of our fellowship longer than any current members, 45 years. Sidney has been president of the board. She has served on various committees, such as the design team. She has presented programs for us, such as Art in the Secular. She's also still participating in the Buddhist Studies and Meditation group. She cares for a colony of feral cats, and she is a great animal lover. Welcome, Sidney. Ed Wilson was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and he's lived in Indiana, in Ohio, North and South Dakota, and Alberta, Canada. A major influence was a teacher who was the head of a religion department. Ed himself fulfilled a childhood dream to become a minister. He met the requirements of a 5-year program to enter the ministry, and he spent 13 years as a pastor and evangelical minister in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. He remained in that denomination until he realized that he disagreed with the doctrine. He considers himself a spiritual explorer And this is what led him to UU, where he could find his own path. He joined UU in 1976, and he wrote the bylaws and the celebration of life. He has served in almost every position except treasurer, and he also served as our adjunct minister. His career also included about 25 years in Columbus radio, mostly as a radio talk show host and as a news commentator. From 1995 until 2007, he served as the executive to the mayor of Columbus. Ed and Sidney have demonstrated a continuing love and support for the fellowship. They have expressed great joy that they could have a fundamental role in providing one more improvement to their beloved UU fellowship. This handsome pulpit you're going to see in just a minute. So we thank you, Ed and Sidney. Know that you are greatly loved and appreciated by us.
And now, if Ed and Sidney will walk up for the unveiling of the pulpit.
This is a great pleasure. I've been looking forward to for a long time, and we've been looking forward to.
Sidney, if you'll remain for the dedication. Sidney will direct you in reading the responses as I read each statement of the dedication. And remember to join in this is where we unveiled it when we were inspecting it. Ed wanted you to see this picture as we were getting it ready for today. I will read the speaker's lines, and Sidney will direct the congregation in the response. And everyone, take a note that you will participate in the last statement together to place the benediction on this service. So, as a place for preaching, teaching, and advocacy of UU ideals and values,
we dedicate this pulpit.
As a vehicle for affirmation and promotion of the 7 principles put forward by the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations,
we dedicate this pulpit.
For presentation of ideas, opinions, and philosophies that can enlarge outlooks and worldviews of the congregation.
We dedicate this pulpit.
For advocating the needs of the ill, the poor, the worried, and the distressed.
We dedicate this pulpit.
As a venue for preaching of virtues and practices that can spiritually strengthen those in the congregation.
We dedicate this pulpit.
As a desk from which service leaders, moderators, and MCs may organize and conduct discussions and/or question and answer sessions.
We dedicate this pulpit.
And together. So may this pulpit be a venue of expression for worthy thoughts, ideas, and plans, thoughts of peace, love, and compassion, and of positive, creative action. May the message delivered from this pulpit convey wisdom, joy, courage, comfort, insight, and vision. Amen. And now Ed will lead us in the first celebration of life toast from the new pulpit.
We celebrate life. We celebrate life with its beauty and its pain. We lift these cups in tribute to the achievements of human minds and hands, and in sensitivity to the frustrations of misfortune and heartache, not fixing blame or credit for the outcome of chance, sensing the risk, savoring the joy, sharing it all, knowing of the certainty of death, and remembering the value of each moment. We drink our toast of celebration to this time, to the future, to each other, to the throbbing of the earth and sea and sky with life. Together now, we drink this toast in celebration of life. Plymouth, Indiana, a small city of about 10,000 people in northern Indiana. And what an irony that after checking into several places all around our Southland for a cabinet shop to build a pulpit for us, we found the place that would meet our requirements was an Amish woodworking shop in Plymouth, Indiana, as Connie has told us. Perhaps I can tell you, during our feedback session after the service, of some of the personal connections that make me think especially of this town of Plymouth, Indiana. Everyone involved in securing for us a pulpit builder knew the excellent Amish reputation for quality workmanship. I'd like to pause right now to insert a great big thank you to Connie and to Ron Ussery. They picked up this project, helped us find a pulpit or a pulpit builder, and also nurtured the project all the way through to the day when it was delivered to our fellowship by the people who built it. So my appreciation of that, of those two people, and the time and the energy they put into it, knows no bounds. Would you join me in giving them a hand? Since our purpose here this morning is the dedication of this beautiful new pulpit, you may be interested in what I would call a bit of biblical trivia. You may not have realized that there was anything trivial to be found anywhere in the Bible, but I think the fact that I'm going to bring you would have you agreeing that it is a trivial but not an important fact. The word pulpit appears only once in the King James Version of the Bible, only one time. And that one time that it mentions appears in the 8th chapter of the book of Nehemiah, and I'm going to read that little bit for you. Here's how the word pulpit is used in its lone biblical reference. Quoting now, "And Ezra the scribe stood upon a pulpit of wood," stood upon a pulpit of wood, which they had made for the purpose. There you have the only use of the word pulpit in the KJV Bible. Notice that it says Ezra stood upon the pulpit, which gives us a rather interesting visual image, doesn't it? But there you have the only use of the word in the 66 books of the KJV Bible. And we have noticed, as I said just now, that the man stood upon that pulpit. Well, we don't want anybody to stand on this one. That's not what it's about. The King James translators, in my view, probably should have used the word podium, which by definition is a raised platform that somebody stands upon. Now, this is a pulpit, however. Please don't stand on it. Ever. President Teddy Roosevelt, as you may recall, used the word pulpit in a metaphorical sense. He said the presidency itself was for him a bully pulpit. Wikipedia says that Roosevelt used the word bully as an adjective meaning superb or wonderful, a more common usage of the time. So for Roosevelt, the presidency itself was his pulpit. And the presidency being his pulpit, we receive the image that the pulpit was kind of a symbol of his message. And we think even today of his using that term to describe the message of his presidency. I think we've come to a time when our religious way, our free, open, non-judgmental, loving, compassionate, and honest way, along with our respect for knowledge, our respect for science, if you please, are an oasis in at least some of that at least some of us feel is a spiritual desert in our current world. Let's use our pulpit then to symbolize our message. And let's proclaim our message from this pulpit. We do not need to, in fact, we should not, pick up on the loud circus-like style of some of the evangelists that we see and hear these days. Let us instead speak reasonably and persuasively in a serious but friendly manner of the freedom, the tolerance, the respect for all people that are so basic in our religious way. I can't think of anything more important to preach and to teach than how people can and should get along with one another. A few months from now, as we all know, we'll be in a season when people will sing and preach about peace on earth and about goodwill toward men. It's a theme that resonates with the needs of the world. And it makes me think of a passage from the Psalms. And I'm going to read that brief passage from the Psalms. Here it is. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. Simple, thoughtful, beautiful words, aren't they? And words that lead us to an acceptance of one another. Words that call us to compassion, to forgiveness, to kindness, to caring. We can help a world that is hurting. Yes, we can. And we can promote peace, peace in the fellowship, peace in the neighborhood, peace in the city, and peace in the whole world. But this message of peace and goodwill must start with each person, with each individual member and friend. First, we need peace in our hearts. We need to get rid of the angst. We need to let love and acceptance melt the ice of indifference. To open our hearts to the cause of justice and of caring and of joy. Joy in the happiness and the success of others. Joy in the dynamics of a positive message. Joy in our togetherness here. In most UU churches and fellowships, you will see that the pulpit is in the middle of the rostrum, not at the side after the manner of some of our ritualistic churches, where Mass is the core, the essential core of the service. The essential core in UU religion is communication. Communication with one another and communication by speakers at our pulpit who will talk of our ideals and ideas. For us, therefore, words are central. And that's so vividly symbolized by the centrally located pulpit that we have here. May this handsome new pulpit serve as a vehicle for the sending forth of vital, worthy UU thoughts and words. Words that are so urgently needed in today's tired and troubled world. Amen.